It turns out I am extremely clairaudient. I can hear extremely well. That is my strongest psychic clair. Many people are very clairvoyant and they can see, other people feel, sense, know. And a few people, more smell, taste, touch, it's just the information's coming to them in different ways. But I hear to beat the band. I'm very fortunate with that.
I'd like to welcome everybody back to part 2 of the interview I had with Wendy Rose Williams. She had 2 near-death experiences. In part 1, she explains a little bit more about that. And in this one, we go a little bit further into other spiritual situations that she had in her life, including soul contracts, explains a little bit more about multiple lives, and her encounters with Archangel Michael. So if you like that kind of stuff, stay tuned, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy this episode. And we even dig a little bit deeper into her NDEs. So for now, here's Wendy Rose Williams.
Talk about astrology shifting, major shift. Everything happens at once. So the baby's born on a Friday and he's back to work full time on Monday. And I then went back to work 3 months later. After that, after giving myself an unpaid maternity leave. So that's what happened with another very interesting, 2 very interesting visits from Archangel Michael. So while I'm pregnant, I'm at the pediatrician's office with our older daughter before I deliver, and all of a sudden I hear, "Look, look." And I can tell it's Archangel Michael. So I'm like looking around the room like, oh gosh, are all the kids okay? Because, it's kind of the controlled chaos of the pediatrician's office, and making sure somebody's not chewing on a lamp cord.
Right.
And speaking of lamps, that's exactly what I see. I see this little lamp in the corner, and it's like getting brighter and brighter and brighter. I'm like, oh, wow, look at that. And I'm like, I don't think anybody else is seeing this. And I can see there's a little brochure in front of it. So I'm kind of like talking in my mind to Michael. I'm like, you want me to go get that brochure, don't you? And I can just sense the yes. And then I can sense him leave. She got the message. That's all I needed her to know. So I run over with my toddler under my arm, and I run over and grab this brochure and shove it in my diaper bag to read it home. And what it was a program called WIC. It was Women, Infant, and Children. And what it was health insurance that I could qualify for me, and to cover the pregnancy even. And it also helped us with some food.
Wow.
So this was huge because, of course, we'd been trying to get assistance, but we didn't qualify for anything because we're wealthy, because we own a home and we own 2 vehicles. Of course, all of it's in total jeopardy.
Right. And you
But
have your mother paying for it also.
right. So, but I was so grateful, and just so grateful that I could hear Michael say that, because I didn't know about this program. So that was a wonderful boon.
Was it
So
audible or was it a nudge?
Pardon?
Was it audible hearing Michael, or was
I can hear. Yeah, I could hear him. It turns out I am extremely clairaudient. I can hear extremely well. That is my strongest psychic clair. Many people are very clairvoyant and they can see, other people feel, sense, know. And a few people, more smell, taste, touch, it's just the information's coming to them in different ways. But I hear to beat the band. I'm very fortunate with that. Was very thrilled to have that insurance coverage. I qualified for what was called, later became called a drive-through delivery, where you got a 24-hour stay, including the labor. Well, guess what? It can take 24 hours to actually deliver. So it was a very, very short stay.
okay?
And I'm home. I'm home the next morning, kind of like not on the planet, but so thrilled and so grateful, as is anyone, to be holding their child. But especially for me, having gone through what I went through, because it was an extremely high risk pregnancy, because there was absolutely a possibility of the fundus rupturing again because of just that incredible growth that you go through. And, you know, with everything pressing on it. And I had asked, well, what would happen? And the doctor had explained to me, it might kill you because it can go straight into the baby can go straight up into your heart and lungs.
Wow.
So this is the way I'm going through this entire pregnancy, as well as I know I've had anesthesia, I've had surgery, I've had morphine. So it was a really stressful pregnancy. And then all the financial stress that was going on. So just so grateful to be holding this baby. I've been home from the hospital for about an hour. I'm just finally trying to catch my breath and just feel relief and gratitude. And here's the baby. It's Saturday. My husband will be back to work on Monday, and Archangel Michael comes right back in, alone at home, nursing the baby. And he comes in and just says, your contract with your husband is complete. And he leaves. Not my finest moment. Many swear words. Like, you've got to be kidding me. I just had a baby. Can I not catch my breath? Can I not catch a break in this process? What do you mean my contract with my husband is complete? And I got the confirmation, the two of you are done. You're done. And I learned years later what the contract that I had with my former husband, and we were together for 18 years. Our contract was to have a long-term marriage that we would both learn from and grow from, and was to have beautiful children together. And I could see the plural on the children underlined. Well, there we go. Second baby, your contract is complete. So I now have a real dilemma because I know it's over, but I don't want it to be over. But I'm not happy, and I've not been happy for years. And it was just a very challenging marriage. So we did our best. We did our absolute best to be kind to each other, to be respectful of one another, to be good partners and spouses to each other, and to be great parents. But when it's over, it's over. And we did divorce. I chose to wait until our daughters were both in school full time, because I thought that would be an easier way for everybody. And we went to a 50-50 residential schedule, which was hard to work our way to that. But we worked with a counselor and found our way to that. And another amazing thing happened along the way, which is my mother had retired. I'm the only child, so it's the only grandchildren. And she was living in Boston, and we were in Seattle. And just more and more people had been saying to her, you know, why don't you consider moving out? You know, move out with the kids, move out with the grandkids. Why are you staying in Boston? They're not going to return to Boston. So why don't you consider moving out there? So she came on out, and she proposed that she and I build and live in a duplex together, so that she could help with the kids, and then I would be available to help her in her older years. And it would just be a really great way to be able to support one another, but also have our own space. So that is what we did over time. And so we start, and also my mother declared herself as a teen grandmom. And what she meant by that was she would help me if I needed help, because it is hard to have a 50-50 residential schedule for your kids and both be working full time, because you need to do pickups, and Seattle traffic is horrific. What you think should take you 15 minutes takes you an hour and 15 minutes to get anywhere. So she would help, if we couldn't make a pickup on time, and she would help my former husband just as much as she did me, because she was just completely neutral, and whatever the kids needed, whatever the family needed. So we really appreciated her so much for playing that role the whole way, through them graduating from high school and going to college. So we did get our duplex built. It took quite a few years. It took 4 years because we ran into a lot of permitting issues. But we did get it built. And once our daughters were 12 and 14, it was at the point where I'd been divorced for about 6 years. And I, for the first time, felt like everything was going great. It's like we're in the new home, the career is going wonderfully, the kids are doing great. And all of a sudden, it was like, what's missing from my life? Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. I'm ready to meet a great guy.
Right.
Had not crossed my mind because there just was so much that
Going
needed
on.
to be done, and I really wanted to focus on the girls. I felt they deserved that. And life was just really super busy with the multiple household family going on. So there I am, and I'm thinking, oh, well, where do you meet a great guy? I have no clue because I'm not meeting anybody at church. I'm not meeting anybody through friends of friends. Obviously, one does not go to bars anymore. Just like I don't have time to like join a bunch of meetup groups or whatever. So I asked my younger girlfriends who were actively dating, and they said, oh, Wendy, that's easy. You just go on match.com. And I'm looking at them going, match. What? I don't know what they're saying. No idea, because I haven't been on a date in 25 years. So I don't know that a lot of people are meeting online. So they explained the concept to me and said, you just need to put together a profile. We'll help you do it. So some of my girlfriends helped me do it. So I did that. And the minute, because Match and a lot of those dating websites are set up, you put in like the distance that you're willing to be from the person that you want to meet. The minute I changed it, Joe, to 10 miles, this profile came up immediately. And I had that knowing, I had that deja vu, like you with your girlfriend. It's like, I know this man. I know him. I know him. And I'm reading through the profile, which was quite unusual. It's not like it was trite or standard in any way, but it's like I knew what he was going to say. And the last sentence in it was, any woman on a spiritual journey, particularly one interested in an LBL, we have to meet. And I'm thinking, LBL, what the heck is an LBL? So I'm Googling it to make sure it's not some weird drug reference.
Right. Trying to figure out what
No
is it called? Yeah.
idea. I
Right.
know I'm like kind of naive, and girlfriends have been like watching over me, and some guy friends too. They're like, Wendy, you're like a little naive about all this. We need to watch over you.
Right.
Um, and so, but what I found, Joe, was LBL, Life Between Lives, Dr. Michael Newton, Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls, Past Life Regression, Life Between Lives. So I'm like, this is fascinating. What is this about? I cannot wait to read this book. So I ordered the book from the library because, again, it's just things where it's not Kindle instant gratification. Like I, grabbed one off Kindle today, and I grabbed one off Audible today. It's like we just get things so quickly now. But I grab it, order it from the library, and I'm waiting for Destiny or Journey of Souls to come because I want to read about Life Between Lives. So I sent a private message to this gentleman on Match. And I asked him, I said, are you talking about Life Between Lives? And, just asked him some questions. And he's like, and he writes right back. He's like, yes. Do you know about this? Have you done any of this work? And I was like, no, I'm waiting for the book to get here, but it's fascinating. I can't wait to dive into it. So he and I then play How Do I Know You for 3 weeks
Mm.
via private messages, phone calls, because it took us 3 weeks to get our schedules meshed to be
Right.
able to meet for lunch. And I think that was purposeful because it gave time for the book to come and for me to read it. And so I'm waiting in the restaurant for him to come in. And the minute he comes in, I recognize him. And guess what? Not everybody looks like their match picture. They're using the picture from 10 years ago, or
Right.
most
Right.
flattering picture ever. But the minute he came in, it wasn't just his face. It's like I knew his energy. I knew how he walked. I knew he's extremely self-confident. I just knew him. And I couldn't move. I'm just like sitting on the little bench in the restaurant foyer. And I'm just like sitting there. And because I can't stand up. And he comes over to me and he drops down on one knee in front of me. And he's just like looking like right into my eyes. And he says, I know you. And he helped me up, grabs me by the elbow and says, come on, let's go have lunch. And it's like, oh, okay, I can move.
Wow.
We were there for 3 hours. We would have been there longer, but it's like, oh my gosh, we've got to get back to work.
Right.
And it just, we finished each other's sentences. It just like we couldn't stop trying to catch up. It was just incredible. And we knew by the end of that lunch, we knew we had many past lives together. It was just clear as day. And he was getting ready to go for his second life between lives. So that's why he'd put out that extreme interest, to just see if anyone else was kind of at that same point. So we then dated exclusively, and it was just highest highs, lowest lows. I have never felt such intensity, and I don't do drama. I don't like drama. I really care about integrity and peace and excellent communication and really being supportive of each other. So this relationship, it was amazing and wonderful and crazy making too. So it was so intense, and it took me quite a while to catch on to. That's because we were clearing all the past life energy, and that's why we needed to meet again.
Right.
And we found over time, it took us 8 years, 21 shared lives together, quite a few of them married.
Wow. Wow.
So 6 of them. So that's just a lot of energy to handle and to manage when you're getting to know each other and you're dating. And just, like I said, some of it will be wonderful and some of it would be just weird and just out of proportion and just too much. So what I learned, after we were no longer together, he ended it at 13 months. And I thought my life was over.
Mm.
It's not like I went into a depression. It's like I couldn't remember how to breathe.
Mm.
And it's like life had no purpose. There just was like no reason.
Yeah.
And then I
Because of
did,
that strong energetic connection, it
and there
right,
was,
right away my feeling was like you did step into that when you had your NDE, you understand the higher end, like what energy feels like, and you
yes.
had that again. And
Yes, I had that again in spades, and I'd never had that in a romantic relationship. So over time, we learned what our soul contracts were together. He had this soul contract to wake me up spiritually.
mm,
There we go. So there it is, right in the match dating profile. So that's what had just called me in. And then so that contract was delightful. It was amazing. I was finally ready for it. I start unpacking the NDE and making sense of that. And he'd been on a spiritual journey for about 10 years. So he was an amazing mentor to me in the beginning, and just, rattling off books I should consider reading. And luckily, I'm a really fast reader and take in information really, really well. So I'm, reading the books faster than and he's like, oh my God, I haven't even read that one yet. It's just on my, it's on my nightstand, but you read 10 times faster than I do. So help me prioritize my book read list. So we just were doing so much together. And I also discovered over time the second soul contract we had together, which explains so much after we'd broken up. And it was for him to break my heart repeatedly until I stood in my power fully without abusing it, because I was shirking my power. I didn't want to step into it. I did not want to come out publicly. I did not give interviews for years. When I did originally I interviewed under a different name. I just had so much trouble, such fear around speaking out about spirituality. And it turned out to be a boatload of lives. And this is pretty common for light workers, for love workers, for healing practitioners. There's often, when I'm working with clients like that, there's often a lot of energy to clear. There's some abject fear because having been imprisoned for it before, tortured for it before, having had, family taken away, having been burned at the stake, just some very unpleasant outcomes that are not going to happen now.
Right.
But just that soul memory is eternal, and that fear just really, really comes up. So that contract was brilliant to break my heart repeatedly until I stood into my power fully.
Did you mean you got back together with him? Is this what you meant? Or
No.
oh,
Yes and no. That's a great question.
okay.
So when he ended it, and by the way, he ended it by email.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
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 Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, picture flames like popping out of the top of my head.
Right, right, absolutely.
I
That's
was so infuriated. I was
right.
just so infuriated. I was like,
Wow.
oh, really?
Yeah.
So I took about 3 days until I thought I could form appropriate words, and called him at that point and said, got your email. I agree, we're done. But are you willing to meet for coffee and have a little closure here? Are you willing to talk a couple things through? And I've got some of your stuff and you've got some of my stuff. And can
Right,
we talk for coffee?
right.
So he said yes. And we did that a few days later. In fact, I think it was on 9/11 of all the interesting dates. And Joe, it was one of the most powerful, best conversations I'd ever had, because we agreed we're not getting back together. We can't. We just can't.
Right.
But there's some things we need to work on. So we had this really amazing conversation. And how interesting it like kind of started with a 3-hour conversation in person, and it kind of ended the same way. But it didn't actually end. So I'm then done with him, because I am okay. We got the closure. We traded the stuff back. We're done. And I was heartbroken. I just needed to take care of myself and my girls and work my job and take care of my home and pets, and just that's where I needed to focus and be with friends. But what started happening very quickly, we start running into each other, he and I, everywhere and anywhere in the most ridiculous ways possible. And it's not like we live 10 miles apart. It's not like, we live next door to each other. It's not like we moved so much in the same circles, and we didn't run into each other at any places we'd gone to together either. It was like new places. So if you ever have that happen with someone, be aware you've got more work to do. You've got some more things to unweave.
Mm.
So we realized that, and after about 3 months, I'd recalled how to breathe. And he asked me, very tentatively at that point, can we be friends for the purpose of being spiritual seekers together, because it seems like we've still got some work to do. I said, yes, I understand. I know that too. So that is what we did. And I just, had to put some new boundaries in around it. We
Right.
meet out in public, and and just I had to put boundaries around it, because there was a lot of heartbreak
Right.
when it ended, because I could feel the contract, and multiple healers and spiritual teachers that I worked with afterwards said, oh my gosh, the two of you had this beautiful contract to marry and have a very, very happy marriage later in life. I was like, yep, I know. And we were supposed to do all this spiritual work together. We were supposed to write books together. We were supposed to be in the media together. So the surprise, Joe, and
Are you talking about this life?
yes,
No.
and the surprise is all those things came true because they were very much meant to happen, but none of them happened the way I thought. I thought we'd be like co-writing the same book together.
Right.
And instead, I helped him get published, and then he helped me get published.
Oh, wow.
And he's actually the client in my first book. And he generously, just blinded his identity and said, go ahead and publish it. I'm just so relieved to help you get your first book done and out there, because he was just feeling so much that energy. He knew he was supposed to help me get published.
So you two, although you didn't get together in this long-term marriage, this long-term life as a couple, you still found a way to support one another
Yes.
in your journey in this incarnation.
Yes, I think our guides are brilliant. And when a soul, because he and I had some really important soul contracts together, and he also became my coach for public speaking, because it was beyond crippling anxiety around it. I mean, I would actively get sick or lose my voice. I
Right.
mean, it was that bad. So he worked with me and worked with me on that, because guess what? He was a sportscaster.
Okay.
So, and he had done a lot of public speaking, and he knew it was something spiritually blocking me. He's like, okay, keep going to healers and I'm going to help you and we're going to figure it out. So he got me some of my first interviews. And so it just was really important. And like I said, we each helped the other person get published. And we just did a lot of work together as we unwove those different lives. And also, we're working to do what we were meant to do to help humanity.
Yeah.
And then I could see that we were complete. And I told him that and said, now I want to give you closure, and I'm not sending you an email.
Right.
Face to face. Get that jibe in there one more time.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, face to face, it's time to wrap it up. We've done everything we need to do, and I just want to wish you well, but I don't want any more contact.
Mm.
And he was not happy with that, so we kind of went through that 2 or 3 times, because I was trying to be really kind and really, really patient. And then after about 3 months of that, I did completely block it at that point,
Right.
because I felt I'd done everything correctly.
Mhm.
And 2 or 3 different healers and psychics had said to me, Wendy, you need to be ending this. You need to be cutting this off. I said, I know, I'm trying, I'm doing it. I'm trying, I'm doing it. I'm just trying to be kind. They're like, do it. So I did what needed to be done, because it was starting to stop me from progressing again. And he needed to go in new ways too.
Wow.
So that's what happened after 8 years. So we met in 2010, and then wrapped it up in 2018, so 5 years ago. But that's what got me on my spiritual path. I went on Match.com,
Oh my goodness.
which I think is
Well,
hysterical.
you definitely got a match,
Yeah,
and
right.
the
Not
match
only
was
my soulmate of so many lives, but he at that time was my primary soulmate. And these are just a bunch of, I don't mean it to sound trite or like a bunch of designations, but these energies are very real. And if people feel stuck, you have to look at things like soul contracts, and you just have to look at the energy and, how can you be in your integrity and learning the lesson you need to learn, and how can you work it through? Because sometimes things just aren't meant to be, because he and I had an irreconcilable difference, and he was happy to get together and be together, but he was not happy to be monogamous, and I said no dice.
Right.
So that was not, we couldn't reconcile that.
Right.
So that,
Yeah.
that it needed to end. So
You know,
that's just the day it is, the way it is.
the entire experience you've had up until this point, and you're obviously now knowing you're an author. Again, these are things I didn't know much about. This is what I love about these conversations. I love that I always say to myself, should I be going and taking notes and and I'm like, no, I want to find the real
The
organic stuff so I can talk about it, and I actually have really enjoyed this because you really told a story. I haven't had much of that. A lot of it is me asking questions, and the person I'm talking to is answering my questions, but I have all these questions. You were just going through you were answering all my questions without knowing it. It was actually fascinating to watch, because you'd get to one part and then, and then I'd be like, oh, she's talking about this. And you touched on the fact, do we have multiple lives? Do we have past lives? Do we have future lives? I had a past life regression done one time, and it was one of the most remarkable things I've ever experienced.
Oh, that's wonderful.
I was this beautiful Greek woman in one of my past lives, and but I was a very lonely woman and married to a very rich man, and I was very in tune with these lives, and I have it recorded. And one of the fascinating things, I was just talking to my girlfriend about this the other day, was when I had this past life regression with this hypnosis, I gave a name of the person that I was. I gave this name, and it was around the 1600s or 1500s. And
Were you able to do any research?
I did. I gave the name and I didn't know where this name came from. And after finding out that I was under this hypnosis for 2.5 hours, and I thought it was 20 minutes.
Right. That's the hallmark of a good session.
Yeah. I went home and I immediately pulled up Google and I looked up popular female names, Greece or whatever it was, 16, whatever year I put. And I mean, it was one of the top 3. And I sat there and I just stared at the screen, and I went, and
you can just feel it. You can feel it in your body.
I immediately emailed the individual who did the past life regression, and his response, which I thought was such a nice response, because he was very real with me, and he said, I do this work, but I sometimes am a skeptic myself, because he hasn't had an NDE, or as far as I know, he just does the work.
Okay.
But it's moments like that verify the work he's doing. It's like where did that come
It gave him some validation for that left brain.
That's right. Because he's so scientific and
right.
Understand, is it the brain? Is it, and so anyway, I wanted to mention that because you did talk about the amount of lives you had with this individual.
Yes.
Found that fascinating. And I don't put that past anything. I do strongly believe that we have these connections. Going way back a little bit here, just a really quick question, when you had the near-death experience, and I ask everyone that's had these experiences this, if you can really feel it and think about it, when you were in that hospital and it happened, and the moment you were out, did it feel as real or more real than now?
Much more real. It's more real than real. It's just so vivid. It just takes away all the noise around us, because we're in our heads so much, and there's just such chatter going on, unless you're really good at balancing your energy and a wonderful meditator, and if you've raised your vibration and frequency. But it's just more real than real.
It's more real than real. So it
vivid.
Real, it felt real. Does it change the way this is? Does it change the way you look at the world around you, or has it been long enough now that you've kind of
very much so. Nothing to me can ever go back. after it's life changing. It's just completely life changing, even though it took me some time to unpack it. And I asked my guides about that, and they said everything came in the right way, in the right order, and I wasn't ready for it any sooner. That's why I didn't find Seattle IANs and, run off to a support group and start getting all educated about NDEs, because I was such a busy working mother with two preschoolers. There's just so much going on in that time of your life. And then same thing once I'm then a single working mother. So I think that's why that like lull had to come up of my daughters were doing well as teenagers and life had been rebuilt by the time they were 12 and 14. And that's when I was ready for everything to start to change and open up. So I think that's why at that point I meet the man with the contract to wake me up spiritually.
Yeah.
And then the heartbreak of that relationship ending, because it wasn't just the relationship, it felt like my whole purpose was going away, because I didn't see how the books were going to get written and how the media work was going to get done, because again, he was the one that was the published author and had all the media work and connections and had been a journalist and so on and so forth. But it just started just coming around in different ways, because our guides, it's like they reroute everything. They find it. Plan A didn't work. Well, that's fine. We've got plan B, C, D, all the way through, double Z. And it just comes to you at the right time in the right way. So I think we've just got to learn to be more kind with ourselves and just not be so impatient, just try and follow the energy. And where does it feel like there's a lot of good energy and doors are opening, and work more on that. But the heartbreak of it all ending had such a great turnaround, because that's what caused me to completely redo my life. And because he takes me to my first past life regression. He takes me to my first life between lives. He found the therapist for me, because like I said, he'd been studying all this for 10 years. And then the beautiful wheel turning is I become his past life regressionist, which leads to the first book getting published. But also through just trying to sort through the intensity of everything that had happened, I became a Reiki master energy healer. I became a certified spiritual teacher. And I became a channel. And there are things that were so meaningful to me. And I'm doing all this while I'm working the full-time day job. I'm working in healthcare, business development, in something very traditional and very different. My original background is I have an MBA degree. So, and then once I got on this path as an energy healer, I thought, oh gosh, well, there goes the MBA, what do I need that for? You know what? I use it all the time, because people come to me and they're like, I think I want to start a spiritual business, but I have no idea how to do it. It's like, oh, great. Let's bring your higher self in. Let's bring your guides in, and let's start figuring that out. So we can do it both ways. So it's never wasted. Our education, our experiences, it's never wasted. It's just all kind of, it's like, what's it called that you look through? A kaleidoscope. You just turn it, and you don't know what's going to come up, but it's always beautiful and it's always unexpected. And I think when we can just relax and just realize, oh, I'm just turning the kaleidoscope again, all the pieces are going to reassemble in another way, and just relax into it.
These are the epiphanies I'm having recently as well. I've always been a singer-songwriter. I'm a musician. My whole life, you can see guitars everywhere, and this is what I do. I coach musicians. I have a music school. I do all these things, and
yes.
Yet such a spiritual person since a young child, seeing colors around people and feeling people's energies in the grocery stores, and not understanding why children were mean to each other. And this is when I was a young kid, and then going through anxiety because I was afraid of death, and then figuring out, oh my gosh, people can die and come back, and then studying them and going to psychics. And this is what's led me into this direction. And I always thought, I should be working in spiritual work. I should be running spiritual, I should have a spiritual business. And I keep thinking this, and I go, well, wait a second, and just recently I thought, wait a second, I'm on episode 13 or 14 of the Soul Inspired. It's a podcast. Wait a second. I think I'm doing that.
You're absolutely doing that. And why do you think the music and the singing and songwriting is not an expression of your spirituality and of your energy? It absolutely is.
It is, right. And I think it's just what happens. And I have to always remind myself of that, because my music is soulful. Like my name online used to be Soul Vision. It's always been spiritual, soulful music. And I know that part, but I guess what I'm feeling lately is some really dramatic expansion that's happening. And I think I'm at a point now where I'm just kind of just letting it happen. It's like I'm just kind of in this flow.
Let it bubble up.
It's in a flow right now, and I just continue to go through it. So a lot of your experience listening to your life story, the things you went through, so many related moments that I had even with you, just hearing those. But again, and I feel like I have to ask you this. I've talked to a few near-death experiencers, and I've talked to people that have different ideas of what the near-death experience was. I've spoke with people about when you pass on, there's a DMT release, right, that goes through your brain, and right, DMT, right, and they go into this. So I guess the question that used to always come up with me when I used to think about, is it real? That's why I said, how real did it feel? Because some people like to say, well, it's this release of a chemical and it's just giving you this nice experience before you die, and then that's it. And I think I'm trying to understand the purpose of the DMT release in your brain when you pass. I don't know how that relates, because then there's scientists who've used DMT and they put it into people, and people have these near-death experiences. They claim they do. I don't know. This is just things I've heard and seen. It's probably ways scientifically to try to understand the near-death experience without bringing in the spiritual side to it. Okay. And I being someone who's speaking with a number of people, I want to be open to everyone, and I want to understand everyone's experience. And I guess my question to you would be, I guess it would be, what is your thought on that? Like with the DMT situation, I had one guest tell me that, between being here and being there, it's almost like tuning into a different radio station. And it's like the dial.
That's a great way to put it. It's a different vibration. It's a different frequency. It's a higher vibration and frequency.
Right. And I guess the way that once he explained this, I thought, well, maybe it's not the DMT itself that's giving us the experience. The DMT is the dying brain or whatnot. There's something that's happening, and it's moving us out of this station. We're no longer tuning in. It comes in and it goes, okay, we're changing the station on you. And now
right.
It could be that, but I guess I don't know if you know anything on that, or if you've heard of this, or if it's.
I don't. With all greatest of respect, having worked in healthcare and scientific fields for 30 plus years, you just know what you know when you've had the direct experience.
Right.
But when people have not, it's inexplicable. You can try and replicate it. You can try and have it be valid and reliable and blah, 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 blah. But why is there such an incredible body of knowledge coming up in this way? I mean, at this point, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of well-documented near-death experiences. I mean, you look at things like Surviving Death on Netflix, Leslie Kean's 10-year study and all the research that she did being made into a documentary. That was fascinating to me, that shot up to number one. I mean, there wasn't such interest in this before, and they didn't just study near-death experiences. They were looking at afterlife experiences, shared death experiences. They were looking at a lot of research of people who are in hospice, who are actively dying, and the experiences that they were going through and that family members were going through, and information being brought back that people had no other way of knowing, being shared with them. Things like Eben Alexander,
Right.
respected neurosurgeon, him coming back and asking his family about an older sister that had died that he'd never been told about.
Right.
But yet, once he has his NDE and he's on the other side, he's interacting with her.
Right.
Just those types of things. And for me to get to be there with my paternal grandparents, I know exactly who they are.
Mm.
And it's just, what you know, what you know.
What would
And
you what would you say to someone who has a fear of death?
I would say it's all going to be okay. We're just going to be supported and loved, and people absolutely get help in passing over. I mean, there's people that are death doulas. I'm talking about physical people, as well as hopefully there's family or friends there, if you want them there, and most people do want them there. Or a neighbor or whoever it might be, to be with people in their last few days when they're actively dying. But also, I have seen this myself, when someone has an exit point. I was with a relative who had a serious surgery, and it was a potential exit point where she could have chosen to go home. And all the relatives that were on the other side and angels were gathering, because I saw them in the hospital room. And I know she saw them too, because she asked me to get rid of them and chase them away,
Wow.
because she wasn't ready to go. And she said, there's weird stuff happening and I don't like it, and it's scaring me, and can you make them go away? And she was pointing to the four corners of
Mm.
the, and that was exactly where I had been seeing her parents and her brother, and just different people coming in and gathering to just ease that way home. It's easier to pass on and to drop the body and to die and have your soul leave your body. It's much easier than being born. You've already done the hard part.
That's right. That's right.
So it's okay. And I mean, again, modern medicine can, help keep people comfortable too, if they are feeling some real discomfort.
Right.
But I think they can also be over medicated, and if staff doesn't understand what's going on and say, oh, it's just dementia. Well, no. When people who are dying are asking for their passport, their keys, their purse, their suitcase, and they're talking about going on a trip, they're going to die. They're in that stage of actively dying, because they're trying to get on the bus, the train, the plane, whatever represents the journey to them is them. They're passing on.
What do you think our purpose is? Why are we here?
I think it varies completely depending on the person. I think in general, we're here to remember how to return to love. And it's really all about love, and that we're meant to feel love, experience love, give love, create love, co-create love, as well as peace, as well as joy, and just those highest vibrational energies. But I think Marianne Williamson's book, Return to Love, really, really has it right. I think the animals really have it right. Anyone who's had a great relationship with a cat, a dog, just seeing that love, especially from a dog. Cats are more, you're their servant.
Right.
But dogs, I mean, don't we all want to be the person that our dog thinks we are? Because they just adore us and think we're so special, because their hearts are just so big and they're such pure love. They don't bear grudges. They forgive. They're resilient. I think we're here to really return to that state and release the fear. I think there's so much fear and anxiety. It's just prevalent on the planet. And that's just that's the war energy. That's just oh, there's not enough to go around. And, it's like we've got a bunch of toddlers running amok
That's
in a lot of ways.
You mentioned you have a book, you do work in healing, right? Is that correct? It's
Yes. So I am a past life energy healer, and I have the privilege and the gift of helping people release past life energy. It often shows up as anxiety, as depression, as physical and emotional pain, or just feeling stuck. So it's my privilege to help people be able to release those things and just get to the place where they're feeling happier and healthier, and that they have a purpose, and that they can just understand that purpose and attract the resources for it. If they're feeling like, they just can't get the resources, you can absolutely find a way.
I love that. And where can people find you and your book and things like that? Do you have a website?
Sure. Via my website. And my website is my full name. It's wendyrosewilliams.com. And they'll see the links to the books there. The books are on Audible as well as on Amazon. So you can also search directly there. And then my podcast is Waking Up Spiritually. And everything is archived at wakingupspiritually.com. Because since I had such a interesting full e-ticket ride for waking up, and so many things have happened, it's my pleasure to help people with that journey, because people who've had that very sudden abrupt, it can be lonely, it can be just really, it can be scary, it can be confusing, it can be alienating. People can lose most of their family and friends as a result, when they start speaking about their new beliefs, because it's so different. That's very much the experience I had. Family was like, what is wrong with you? Did somebody drop you on your head?
Absolutely.
So it just does not mesh with my family, and that's just the way it is.
Right. That was one of the questions I was going to ask you. It was one of the last ones, and you just answered it. If there was changes with family and friends after the experience,
Very much so.
very common that way, right? It's
very common. It's very common.
I think it addresses and brings up questions in other people, and that makes people uncomfortable because then they're questioning their own belief systems, and I can understand that. And
Right.
You have to just respect that.
Because again, they're not having these same experiences. So if they can't relate to them at all, and certainly some do, I do have some lovely friends that have been with me through these major changes, that are kind, that are open-minded, and did have a little bit to share in that area, and others are just, plain old kind. And I know I can only talk about it so much, and then it's like we need to relate and talk about other things, because I can't be on the 100% let's talk spirituality and energy, because they're just like, they don't have much to relate to in that area, and that's fine. We've all got our different path, and I know it's very, very it's very different, and as I said, it can be isolating.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean it's not the right path.
yeah, absolutely. I do want to say thank you for coming on and talking to me today and telling your experience. It was probably one of the most remarkable, detailed experiences that I've had the privilege of speaking with someone about yet. And so I really do appreciate it from my heart.
Well,
honestly, I do.
thank you, Joe. I really appreciate your work and time and effort, and just happy to be here, and happy to be able to share the story. So thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. And I usually at the end just say thanks to all the subscribers. Thanks to everybody that's jumping on and sharing and liking the podcast episodes, because these are important. The best thing you can do is share it with someone that it might speak to. So thank you so much to everybody. And until next time, I'll see you next time on The Soul Inspired. So